Well, welcome everyone to our Thursday night talk. Really happy to have Thay here tonight. And as an introduction to the Association of Engaged Buddhists, it's a non-profit organisation formed by a group of lay Buddhist practitioners and supported by an ordained Sangha as our spiritual director, Bhante Tejadama. We welcome all who think that they might benefit from learning and practicing meditation, who wish to find a different way of looking at life, or who simply are seeking for a supportive community within which to practice the Dharma together. We organise regular Dharma talks, meditation practice, and meditation retreats. We have a beautiful retreat centre at the Southern Highlands of New South Wales called Vegsala, where we hold our retreats. On the website, there's nothing upcoming, but I'm sure that they are will be coming up soon. So keep an eye on the website. If you are looking for a community to practice and learn, we wish to be able to support you mentally and spiritually in a safe, caring, and supportive environment. If you haven't, please consider joining as our member and subscribe to our newsletter. As we are run solely based on donation, any generous support will be very much appreciated. All teachers are offering their teaching free of charge, so if you wish to offer dana to the teacher, you may contact us directly or make a donation through the website. Just indicate that it's dana for the teacher. For more information about future events or how to support us, please visit our website and Facebook page. And I think Meredith or I will, she's already done it, look at her. The lovely Meredith's already posted all of that information in the chat, all those links. So copy and paste them into your, grab them now if you can. Otherwise ask for them later if you don't get them. So tonight we have Thay, Thich, Truc, Thong, Phap, addressed as Thay, is a South Australian living in Gladstone, a small town in the southern Flinders Ranges. He is 70 years of age and has had a long and varied career in the human services. Fully ordained in September 2005, he has worked as a university chaplain and offered contemplative care in the area of palliative care. Since 2007, he has trained in clinical pastoral education and has worked until April 2021 as a supervisor and educator of chaplains in training. Over the last year, he has been discerning a new path for his life with the help of much solitude and silence, the support of a spiritual director, and engaging in a 9-month course with the New York Zen Center for Contemplative Care, a program in offering contemplative care from a Buddhist perspective. He has recently relocated to a camper van in Adelaide and engaged in the support of his sister-in-law and his younger brother, who is suffering from vascular dementia and inoperable pancreatic cancer. This will include teaching his brother meditation, being with him as he dies, and conducting his funeral. Thay lives with his old friend, Reverend Sister Sandra Sears, and his beloved dogs, Joey and Lucy. So tonight's topic is One Buddhist Perspective on Death, looking at death from a personal and a broader political point of view. So with all of that, I will go ahead and pass over to you, Thay, and thank you so much for being here and offering your time.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll start as usual with about 10 minutes of meditation, and tonight's meditation will be a little bit guided, not rigidly guided, but somewhat guided. And when I sent the title for this Dharma talk to Meredith, I'd forgotten the fullness of the title, but the fullness of the title says, Some Reflections on Death by a Buddhist Monk in the Company of Padrigo Tuma. And Padrigo Tuma is an Irishman and a poet and a peace activist. And he is from the same city that my very heroic great-great-grandmother came from. So I've got a lot of, I feel a lot of affinity for Padraig. So for the meditation tonight, let's just sit comfortably either in our chair or on the floor. Make sure that your back is as straight as it can be without it being like a ramrod. Your hands folded either in your lap or one on each thigh. Your chin tucked in and your nose in line with your abdomen. And with your eyes gently closed. Or if you wish, you can leave your eyes open with a very soft gaze about 1 meter in front of you. Allow your shoulders to relax. And allow a gentle smile to appear on your lips, just like the smile on the Buddha image. And you might notice then that the muscles in the face also relax. Allow yourself to let go of the day, of everything that has happened during the day and has caught your attention. Let all of that go and just become present to the quiet and the peacefulness of the place in which you're sitting. Bring your attention to your in-breath and your out-breath as you experience it, either in the nostrils or in the chest or in the abdomen, where you most readily experience your breath. Everybody experiences their breath strongly in one place or another. So you find the place where you most readily experience your in-breath or your out-breath, either in the nostrils, in the chest, or in the abdomen. And as you breathe in, breathing in, remembering that you are alive. And bring to that in-breath that heralds life a certain calm. And when you breathe out, remember that the last thing that you will do in this life is to breathe out. So breathing in calmly and being aware of being alive. Breathing out with loving kindness. Remember that you will pass away, but that is the last thing you will do in this life. Breathing in calmly, breathing out with loving kindness. Breathing in calmly, breathing out with loving kindness. remembering that the out-breath is the last thing you will do in this life. With a calm in-breath, remember that you are alive. With a loving out-breath, remember that the last thing you will do in this life is to breathe out. Very gently bring your attention back into the room. Become aware of your body in contact with the chair, the floor, with itself. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and stretch. Namo Shakyamunaye Buddhaya. Namo Shakyamunaye Buddhaya. Namo Shakyamunaye Buddhaya. So welcome to tonight's sharing. Tonight's sharing is really an extension of what we talked about last time, but the focus is much more on death and dying tonight than it was on old age, sickness and letting go, although letting go is a part of all of those things, necessary part of all of those things. I don't know how many of you have any knowledge of Vietnamese Buddhism and Vietnamese monasteries, but I'll explain what happens that may be very similar to what happens in Chinese monasteries, Korean monasteries, or even Japanese monasteries. Because Vietnamese Buddhism, Vietnamese Mahayana Buddhism, is part of the East Asian tradition of Buddhism. So every afternoon in all Vietnamese Buddhist monasteries, there is a ceremony practiced called feeding the hungry ghosts. The hungry ghost, or the preta, is a being who is rootless, without connection to a bigger context that gives meaning in life. The hungry ghost is depicted having a large, almost bottomless stomach and a mouth the shape and size of a pinprick, and whose hunger is never able to be satisfied. There is an altar for the hungry ghosts set up, and food is placed on it, and the food is meant for them. Verses of homage are chanted along with verses of repentance or beginning anew, and verses of aspiration to bring all beings to the Buddha's teachings. So what follows is an example from the Plum Village tradition. O hungry ghosts, we make offerings of food multiplied in 10 directions so that you can all receive them. By the merit of this offering, may we and all hungry ghosts be successful in the realization of the path. The intention here is that hungry ghosts, along with us, will become fully enlightened. In a letter to Buddhist friends in the New York Zen Center for Contemplative Care, the Irish Catholic peacemaker and poet Padraig Tuama reminded us that in the Irish tradition, there is an understanding that if you ever meet a ghost, you should ask it what it needs and how you can help it. Like many Australians, half of my family are made up of a mixture of Celtic peoples, while the other half are English. In my case, the Celtic half consists of Cornish people, Irish people, and Welsh people. There's much I don't know about the traditions of my ancestors due to the disruption caused by the attempted destruction of Celtic cultures in Britain and Ireland and the subsequent emigration from their homelands to South Australia in the 19th century. When I discover something like the Irish practice of helping a ghost and how that resonates with the Vietnamese Buddhist practice of feeding the hungry ghost, I know that in a human sense, I haven't travelled far from home. In fact, Buddhism often helps me reclaim what was always mine anyway. This has been very healing for me, and I am grateful to the Vietnamese Buddhism that I'm a part of. Padraig Tuama goes further. The ghosts we meet are there to remind us of our death and that we must show benevolence, help, and friendliness to our death. This is because our death needs something from us that only we can give it. Being reminded of our death in order to befriend it is also a Buddhist practice found in the 5 remembrances, which I spoke about in my last Dharma sharing in April. Padraig Tuama goes on to say, we are asked to find the metaphor of friendship towards ourselves as we each face the inevitability of the end of life. Padraig Tuama invites us here to befriend that aspect of our lives that we least want to face up to, that aspect of our experience that we are most terrified of, our death. Tuama then says that the befriending of death is an extraordinary demonstration of spirituality and a practice that is utterly embedded in the everyday. And the everyday will always involve death. We need not be afraid in the face of death, but we need to be compassionate and ultimately to practice that deepest form of love, which is friendship. So how is it that the everyday involves death? You may have noticed that our lives are characterized by non-stop changes. And that leads us into what we call death. The changes are really about the coming and going of life. Life arises in some form or other, then passes away. It comes and it goes, and that's continuous, a continuous process. So we are invited here by Padraig Tuama to befriend that aspect of our lives, the coming and the going, the being born and the passing away. And it's the passing away that frightens most of us, if not all of us. Otuma then says that the befriending of death is this extraordinary demonstration of spirituality and a practice that is utterly embedded in every day. This experience of death in the relative world is one of the causes of what the Buddhist tradition calls dukkha, or suffering, unsatisfactoriness. We need not turn this suffering into an enemy, which is what I spoke about last time, but to welcome it as our teacher and so our friend. So this talk is really about the befriending of the dying process, of the end of our lives as we know them. The aspiration to resolve all suffering, my own and that of all other sentient beings throughout space and time, is the basic motive for adopting a Buddhist life. We become Buddhists in order to resolve the suffering in our own lives and to assist others in resolving the suffering in theirs. And this aspiration is written into the very story of the life of the Sakyan prince, Siddhartha Gautama. In his tour of his father's capital city, Kapilavastu, he encounters 3 sights that turn his mind in the direction of transforming suffering. He sees an old person, a sick person, and a dead person. His father, King Suddhodana, has protected him from these experiences throughout his life in order to stop him from asking existential type questions so that he will stay in the family business. However, after seeing these things, the cat is out of the bag. What to do? The 4th sight provides him with the answer. He sees a monastic practicing meditation in an effort to calm the mind and look deeply into the true nature of all phenomena. As there is a Zen saying that the cause of death is birth. The Buddhist starting point is that death is inevitable. The time of death is unknown. Given that, what should we do? And the answer lies, as Otuma suggests, in the relationship we cultivate with death. Well, let me give you an illustration of this from the inimitable Hermione Granger in the 7th of the Harry Potter books, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And I need to confess to you that the Harry Potter series is, to me, a sacred text. So here we go. Hermione Granger reads the story of The Tale of the 3 Brothers by Beedle the Bard. So sit back and enjoy a story. There were once 3 brothers who were travelling along a lonely, winding road at twilight. In time, the brothers reached a river too deep to wade through and too dangerous to swim across. However, these brothers were learned in the magical arts, and so they simply waved their wands and made a bridge appear across the treacherous water. They were halfway across it when they found their path blocked by a hooded figure, and that was Death. He was angry that he had been cheated out of these 3 new victims, for travellers usually drowned in the river. But Death was cunning. He pretended to congratulate the 3 brothers upon their magic and said that each had earned a prize for being clever enough to evade him. So the oldest brother, who was a combative man, asked for a wand more powerful than any in existence, a wand that must always win battles for its owner, a wand worthy of a wizard who had conquered death. So Death crossed to an elder tree on the banks of the river fashioned a wand from a branch that had hung there, and gave it to the oldest brother. Then the second brother, who was an arrogant man, decided that he wanted to humiliate Death still further and asked for the power to recall others from death. So Death picked up a stone from the riverbank and gave it to the second brother and told him that the stone would have the power to bring back the dead. Finally, Death turned to the third brother. A humble man, he asked for something that would enable him to go forth from that place without being followed by Death. And so it was that Death reluctantly handed over his own cloak of invisibility. In due course, the brothers separated, each for his own destination. The first brother travelled for a week or more, and reaching a distant village, sought out a fellow wizard with whom he had a quarrel. Naturally, with the elder wand as his weapon, he could not fail to win the duel that followed. Leaving his enemy dead upon the floor, the oldest brother proceeded to an inn where he boasted of the powerful wand which he had snatched from Death himself and of how it made him invincible. That very night, another wizard crept up upon the oldest brother as he lay wine-sodden upon his bed. The thief took the wand and, for good measure, slit the oldest brother's throat. And so Death took the first brother for his own. Meanwhile, the second brother journeyed to his own home, where he lived alone. Here he took out the stone, which had the power to recall the dead, and turned it thrice in his hand. To his amazement and delight, the figure of the girl he had once hoped to marry before her untimely death appeared at once before him. Yet she was sad and cold, separated from him as though by a veil. Though he had returned to the mortal world, she did not truly belong there, and suffered. Finally, the second brother, driven mad by hopeless longing, killed himself, so as to truly join her. And so Death took the second brother for his own. But though Death searched for the third brother for many years, he was never able to find him. It was only when the third brother had attained a great age that he finally took off the cloak of invisibility and gave it to his son. And then he greeted Death as an old friend, went with him gladly, and as equals, they departed this life. The first brother sets out to defeat Death. His relationship with Death is belligerent, but he cannot win. The second brother sets out to trick Death. His relationship with Death is characterized by arrogance, but he cannot win. The third brother sets out to live a whole life, but in the end, he surrenders. He greets Death as an old friend, goes with him gladly, and as equals, they depart this life. The third brother is humble, and although he dies, he is neither defeated nor tricked by Death. His relationship with Death is accepting, friendly. This is the Buddhist approach to death, and apparently the traditional Celtic approach. How does the Buddhist strive to achieve this acceptance, this calm open-heartedness? It's achieved through a lifetime of practice, living ethically with the world, understanding the profound truths of the Buddha that include impermanence, even of this thing we call self, and the inevitability of suffering if we struggle against death through fear, regret, arrogance, or clinging to what will inevitably change. The third aspect of this preparatory practice is called mindfulness. Through meditation, the Buddhist strives to observe deeply the constant change inherent in existence without clinging at all to the objects of observation as I, me, or mine. It sounds simple, but it's not easy. And that is why Buddhists call it practice rather than perfect. When the pain of illness comes and death awaits, these three practices of having lived a good life, having understood what is true about ourselves and the world around us, and the process of disidentifying from a changing body and mind, has created a relationship of patient acceptance, free of fear, regret, and clinging. We don't find death or bargain with it. We don't fight death or bargain with it. We engage with the experience of death in a friendly fashion, as with an equal. Buddhism makes the claim that pain and death are inevitable, whereas suffering is not. This sounds simple, doesn't it? But it is not easy and does not always match up to our lived experience. It's a good formula, but we have to live the life we actually have. On Friday, May the 6th, my brother had his appointment with the oncologist at the Flinders Medical Centre to find out the prognosis concerning his pancreatic cancer. Here goes. He has incurable pancreatic cancer, which is aggressive and painful. He has up to 6 months to live. And because of the comorbidities he suffers, he has been advised not to engage in chemotherapy. He agreed with the oncologist, which was a decision, I think, that was very courageous. He wasn't grasping after a little bit more. He was accepting what he had. This prognosis is full of fear and sorrow for him, particularly as it means he will have to leave his dearly loved wife, whose care for him is admirable and powerfully loving. I'm living with Joey and Lucy, my two beloved dogs, in a small car trailer in their backyard in order to share the care for my brother and to support my sister-in-law. I want to be with him when he dies, and I will conduct his funeral as I did for my father and my mother. My focus and energy is going fully into this task. It is very challenging, and I find myself sighing a lot. On Wednesday of last week, I experienced 2 dramatic moments of diarrhea. From Thursday through till today, I have experienced relentless and sharp pain in the left side of my abdomen and ribs. Given my current situation with my brother, I believe I can be forgiven for being concerned that I might also have pancreatic cancer, which includes this relentless abdominal pain. My thoughts went to my own death and how I might befriend it. How can I befriend death if it takes me away from my beautiful Joey and Lucy? After all, I decided that they were going to go first and I would go second so that I could care for them for the whole of their lives. How dare death change my plans? Who will love them like I do if I die before them? What will happen to them if I am not there to care for them together? I discover that I am attached. This is no different from the experience of any other human being, regardless of being a Buddhist monk who can sprout talks on the 5 remembrances. What to do? One person suggested I say goodbye to Joey and Lucy, just a practice run for what is inevitable. I tried. It was very painful, even impossible, as I looked at Lucy lying there so beautifully. It is easy to talk about letting go. it's another thing to do it. Buddhist monk, maybe. Human being, definitely. I want to read you a beautiful poem by a Bengali poet called Rabindranath Tagore. Some of you may have heard of Rabindranath Tagore, who lived in the late part of the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century, and who won. He was the first non-European to win a Nobel Peace Prize for Literature. And the poem I want to read you is I think it's number 9 or 19, I can't quite remember, it doesn't matter, from A Flight of Swans, Poems from Balaka. And it was being translated by Aurobindo Bose. I have loved the world and have wrapped it within my heart in numberless folds. The light and shadow of night and morn have flooded my consciousness till my life and my world have become one. I have loved the light of the world, therefore I love this life. Yet I know I shall have to take leave of it one day. My voice will no more blossom in this air, nor my eyes bathe in this light. My heart will not rush forth to greet the early dawn, nor will the starry night whisper her secrets into my ears. One day I shall have to see her for the last time and whisper to her my parting words. To long for her so ardently is as real as to have to renounce her utterly. Between life and death, there must somewhere be a harmony. Otherwise, the world could not have borne through the ages, smiling such a cruel deceit, and all of the lights of her stars would have darkened. Longing for the world so ardently is as real as to have to renounce her so utterly. I have discovered, as indeed many of us will have, that we live with both holding on and letting go. This is a paradox that will be the making of us. How do I hold on and how do I let go? And how do I not, therefore, crumble? Rabindranath Tagore goes on to say, between life and death, there must somewhere be a harmony that enables us to bear this paradox, to prevail in the face of life and death. This is our practice. This harmony is the result of our practice of the Buddha Dharma. It's a straightforward approach, but it's not easy. And yet, the practice of the Buddha Dharma to hold together this paradox of letting go and renouncing things calls out the best in us. And the calling out of the best in us, we sometimes call enlightenment. Holding on and letting go. So I wonder how you live with that paradox. How do you live with the love of life as you breathe in and the letting go of life as you breathe out? How do you live with that paradox? How have you been able to befriend death? Thank you.
Thank you, Thay. Thank you very much. So if anyone would like to respond to Thay's question, please unmute yourself and just jump in. Or if you wish to just put it in the chat, you can do that as well, and we can read it out.
I could thank you so much for that speech and talking. That was very nice to listen to. And I can share for me, I thought in my life that I would be better with approaching death. I felt like I was quite calm about it, but then I had an experience with my heart. I had like heart arrhythmia starting in my late 20s. So I had to put in a defibrillator inside my chest. And then ever since then, when I experienced the event of the heart palpitations and waiting for the defibrillation, I just can't be calm, if that makes sense, because I feel like it might be the moment when I die. I'm not 100% sure. So I'm wondering if you have any advice on how to deal with that intense fear around the moment of death. That's my thoughts.
I'm not the kind of Buddhist monk that wants to talk you out of your fear.
Yeah.
I'm not the kind of person who's going to say, oh, well, follow this formula and it'll all be fabulous.
Yeah.
And I'm also convinced that I can only ever really speak from my own experience. I could read all sorts of things written by other people in books, but for what I have to say to have any authenticity, it has to come from my own experience. I think fear catches us unawares. It just happens upon us. We don't know it's coming, and then suddenly it's there. And it can come to us while we're awake, or it can come to us in dreams. But having had enough experience of the arising of fear, I do know that it's always a potential companion. It's likely to be there. We are likely to be afraid. And it certainly, in my view, doesn't mean we've failed. We have not failed to be truly human if we experience our fear. As far as I can tell, there's nowhere in the Buddhist teachings where he says, thou shalt not fear. What he says is that all of this stuff will come up, and it's our task to embrace it, to work with it. So fear may arise in that moment for you, in that very, very challenging, dire moment almost for you. But if it's happened a number of times, you know in your own mind and your own heart that it's likely to occur again. So one of the things you might try is keeping an eye out for all the signs of fear arising. Just notice in your body where you experience fear and how you experience fear. And when you're in the situation where you've got the defibrillator inside you, be aware that there's a good chance this fear might arise again. And be aware of the physical cues of the arising of the fear, so that when it arises, you're not surprised, you're not shocked. So that's a practice. Noticing the arising of any feeling, in this case fear, is a place of practice. That's the benefit of the cultivation of mindfulness, that we can notice the arising of our feelings, whether they're pleasant feelings or unpleasant feelings or neutral feelings. In this case, fear tends to be an unpleasant feeling. But with the practice of mindfulness and meditation and all of those things, and your experience, your past experience, there's a good chance you'll be able to be aware of fear as it arises. The next thing is, well, what do I do with that when I've noticed that it's arising? Now, I've got an answer in my mind, and I'll tell you what that answer is. But I risk sounding like a smart aleck. What you can do is just stay with it, just notice it, just watch it change. Breathe into it and then breathe out, letting go. Breathe in and breathe out, letting go. Why I say it's a smart aleck answer is that it's not always that easy to do that. But it's something that you can try. The other thing, of course, is that nothing is permanent. The feeling of fear is not permanent. It will arise and it will express itself physically. You may tremble, you may laugh, you may cry, you may do all sorts of things that help discharge this feeling of fear. Well, allow that to happen. Allow whatever the physical expression of your fear is to happen. Allow yourself to let go of it in whatever way is authentic for you. So you might lie there or sit there and you might be trembling like crazy. Allow it to happen. There's nothing wrong with the discharging of painful emotions. That's how they pass through us. That's how we heal ourselves. So it's really a case of developing awareness around the arising of the feeling, the knowledge that the feeling will pass away, and the application of the means that our bodies have to discharge painful emotions. Now, I don't know if any of that will work or if any of it is helpful to you, but that's as real as I can answer your question. But I do know fear. I know it myself, waking up 3 o'clock in the morning, terrified, for whatever reason. And sometimes that just involves being aware and allowing the feeling to pass, or it involves getting up and making a cup of tea and looking at the full moon or whatever it is that I need to do to come back to the present moment. I think in the end, it's up to you to experiment with these things and see how you go.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks. I think it has given me an opportunity at least to be with fear, so I can practice. Yeah.
Yes. So you can be grateful to that experience because it's given you the opportunity to practice with fear.
Yeah. Thank you.
If that didn't happen, you wouldn't have that opportunity.
No. Thanks.
Which is also easy to say, but not necessarily easy to do. I think in all of these things, we have to accept that we are human beings, that we're going to have all kinds of experiences that are really difficult. That's the first noble truth. There's a lot of challenge and difficulty in life. And it's not just for human beings, it's for all kinds of creatures. At the moment in our household, we have a little cat who is only about 2 or 3 months old. And she's a very beautiful little cat, but she's terrified. She's terrified of me. She's terrified of the dogs and all of that. And it's just part of the nature of living beings for all kinds of reasons to experience fear, or to experience anger, or to experience sadness or regret. None of those things should be chased away. They should be allowed to arise and then pass away in their own time, and for us to learn from them. And hopefully the little pussycat will eventually learn that she has nothing to fear from the man in the yellow pajamas.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey,
Yes.
when you were speaking, it made me think about, or after you spoke, made me think about the pain that comes up around when keeping those two things in my experience at once, that holding on and letting go, and how when that pain comes up around it, then I want to push the whole experience away.
Mm-hmm.
So if I speak in relation to, I've had a long, close relationship with someone with severe alcohol addiction, and being able to stay with the love and the pain that that brings up, realizing that I need to let go of my wish for him and my anger around the disease and all of that stuff. If I can, and that's where I suppose the meditation has really helped me, is that if I can stay with the pain of it, then I can have that love. I can hold on and let go at the same time.
Yeah.
But as soon as that pain becomes too much, and it's the same with my son who's 12, it's like being a parent is just this constant process of holding on and letting go at the same time.
Yes.
You know, as he grows up, it's beautiful to watch, but it's also sometimes really painful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just your talk made me really realize the importance of sitting with the pain and the fear and and really good hearing, Helena, your experience, the fear that I've experienced many times around my health. It's full on.
Do you mind if I respond to what you've
No,
said?
I'd love you to respond. Thank you.
Okay, let me just. I've got plenty of light in my mobile phone. Quite often, Vietnamese people have said to me, Vietnamese lay people have said to me, "Oh, Thay, your life is much lighter than ours. You don't have children. You're blah blah blah. You're in a superior position to us." And I say, look, it's true that in my life I've chosen a path of renunciation. That's true. There are all sorts of things that I don't seek after, that I don't do anymore, or or I struggle hard with a lot of things. But when a person has children, what comes along with children are expectations. You hope that your child will be this kind of person or that kind of person, but they rarely are the kind of person that you want them to be. And so you have to let go of your expectations. And that's your path of renunciation. And I think sometimes that's a much more difficult path than mine. So people who have children, or people who are in a love relationship, you know that things don't. Oh, can I just let my dog out? She's scratching at the door. I won't be a second. You go. Bye-bye. I'm not quite sure what that's about, but in relationships we have in love type relationships, you know, a relationship comes to an end and you wonder why, what's happened, what have I done, who am I to have lost this person? And of course, when someone leaves you for someone else or because they just don't love you anymore, that's extraordinarily difficult to accept. I think most of us have been there at some stage in our lives. And so we have this experience that you suggest of holding on and letting go. It's very hard to let go. We hold tightly to those whom we've loved, and yet we know the necessity of letting go because it's not possible to have that person anymore. And in the end, it's not good for us. What I think is on your side or our side in those situations is our willingness to take time. We don't have to get over something immediately. How many times do we get told, sometimes by Buddhists, oh, just let go? Well, like, thanks very much, but that's easier said than done. It might take some time. It might take a couple of years. I had a relationship with somebody that came to a sudden and abrupt and absolute end, and it took me 12 years to be able to love somebody else. But a lot of good stuff happened in that 12 years. The other thing you can depend on is that your true nature is the same as the nature of the Buddha. You are inherently loving and compassionate and joyful and open-hearted and equanimous and all of those wonderful things, generous, and all of those things, that's part of who you truly are. And you are in the process of reclaiming that, reawakening that in yourself. So you can depend on your own Buddha nature to get you through all of the hurt and the anger and all that you will feel. Not you, I'm talking generally speaking. To get you through all of that, we have to have confidence in our own true nature to help us get through all of the challenges in life, including the end of relationships or the lack of, what can I call it, when relationships don't work out the way we want them to. Even the relationships with our children, or especially the relationships with our children sometimes. I look at my poor mum and think of, and my dad, but more so my mum, how she had these great expectations of her eldest son and how he just never lived up to any of them. In fact, in her mind, but she never stopped loving me. I've never felt not loved by my mother. Well, she's passed away now. And I gave her unwittingly a hard time. I had to be myself, but that wasn't particularly fun for her. But she managed to love me all the way through it. So there she was, holding in the one hand, what did we call it? I've forgotten what we called it. Holding on to who she wanted me to be, and at the same time letting go, so that I was going, because I was never going to be who she wanted me to be. And the really interesting thing I remember, I think occasionally, is that the one child who caused her the greatest amount of heartache was with her at her death. That there was nothing going to separate me from my mother when she died. So for all the struggle of my 20s, I became really aware of the love my mother had for me and what that meant for me. So I was right there and she died in my arms. So I think that's, now I'm completely lost. I don't know what I was talking about, but I hope there's something meaningful there for you, something useful. But yeah.
Yes, thank you, Thay. That's very helpful.
Yeah, Thay, what you say, it's really have a great impact on me as well, about relationship with children and renunciation. I think, yeah, it's very true. I think as a parent, it's our fear of if they do not become somebody that we expect them to be, we feel that it's our responsibility. Maybe like you fear that you fail as a parent. I think that fear carries in us, and sometimes like we kind of force in them, as you say, like, you know, probably against their will. It's just that because you're so too fearful that they will suffer when they grow up if they fail to be, you know, what you expect them to be. Yeah, and my experience, I have my youngest child is the most challenging one. It's like, to the extent that I just don't understand what did I done wrong. It's like I thought I have done everything that as possibly that a parent can do, but it's still, you know, it still become very difficult until, as you say, that I let go of, let go of that fear, let go of that. Maybe it's the ego. I think it's like, and I just trying to stay as present as I can, watching my own emotions and not reacting to her behavior and things like that. I feel that things become better rather than me reacting to to that, I guess.
And that is for you a place of practice.
Yes, it's truly, yes.
Yeah.
And what you say about what thanks to Helena as well, the questions, I think we all face some sort of this fear when, especially people with some health conditions and things like that. And it's true that what you teach about watching that fear, observing that, and yeah, I had a few experience of like severe chest pain, that I think the physical pain is one thing, and then the mental pain is like you don't know what's happening, what's happening, am I dying? That's what Helena said, that you never really fear of death until that moment comes. Yes. And then as they say that, I just let you say you have to breathe. Okay, you breathe, and when you have the pain, and then you're observing that you're breathing, things just kind of come down. Like your fear, it's like slowly diminishing as you kind of watch it. So it's really a very good practice, and it's very good advice. It's like anyone facing any challenges like that, it's a really good practice.
The value for me is that I've given me my own good advice.
Yes.
This is to give other people advice. But I suddenly thought, oh gosh, I need to listen to myself, because that's what you described is what's happened to me in the last week. I've had all this abdominal pain and pain up the side. And the first thought is, I'm going to die. How terrible. And I have no idea whether that's the truth or not. It's just the fear that arises, and the fear of death. So that all those practices of befriending death and being aware and all of that, we're given this wonderful opportunity by our lives to practice that, for which we should be really grateful. It's good to know that you and I are not so different after all.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dave.
And I have to say, Meredith, I didn't realise you had children. You seem so young to me. I think, oh no, that Meredith can't have children. But there you are.
Thank you. I have 3 kids, all grown up. But does anyone else has anything that you want to share? Just feel free to unmute yourself and share with Thay and share with us. Oh, Frank. Yes.
Well, Thay, yesterday, accidentally on YouTube, I met Thich Nhat Hanh, one of my favorite teachers, and he was talking about sort of death. And what I learned from it, it's so very, very helpful. He was talking about the continuation, that we are like a cloud. One moment there is something, and next moment it doesn't exist. Somehow that's the wrong way to think. So we are like a cloud. And when the cloud disappears, there's the water, the rain coming from it. Therefore, it's sort of an assurance that when that comes, it's not going to be the end. Somehow there is a continuity. And it gave me a good feeling, not because I want another lifetime. I became a Buddhist because I had enough of existence and being a being, and went through hell of a lot. I was born during the war, and families suffering. Oh, I don't want to complain, but slowly, in 50 years of Buddhist practice, now I know when I have to go, it will be a relief in a way. What I'm worried about to come again, because Thich Nhat Hanh said, the cloud is there, and when it disappears, the water is there, and then the water will gives nourishment to trees and becomes drinking water. So things are not disappearing so simply. So do you still have that feeling that you'll be coming back and you'll worry about it?
For a number of years, I was very attracted to Thich Nhat Hanh and his teachings, and also Carl Jung. And I do have this sense of continuation. I have my own view of what happens after death. And I'm wondering whether you were watching a film called Clouds Never Die.
No, I haven't seen it. No.
Was that the film you were watching?
No, it was just 10, 15 minutes teaching by Thich Nhat Hanh.
Ah, right, okay. So, and I look at my life and I think to myself, well, when I was in the monastery in America, in California, one morning I just thought to myself, how does a little boy from Port Adelaide get to be in a Vietnamese Buddhist monastery in California at 6 o'clock in the morning, chanting a Sanskrit text in Vietnamese? That's not something I could have even imagined. That was beyond my imagining. So there must be a range of causes and conditions that get me there. And so I am inclined to believe, I don't want to call it rebirth because people have all kinds of attitudes towards rebirth that I'm not sure I agree with, but I do believe in continuity. I look at myself and I look at my sister and brother and my cousins, and I'm very different from them. How does that happen? How does it happen that you come from the same family, but you come into this life with different tendencies? I'm not sure, but there's a lovely English word, inkling. I have an inkling that this happens. And like the teacher, the Buddhist teacher, Jack Cornfield, an American teacher, he has a lovely saying that I repeat regularly, which is, there is more going on here than Christmas shopping. And I think that's true. I don't know how it works, Frank, but I believe it works. I believe there is continuity. But I also believe that what Rabindranath Tagore has said is that there is a harmony, but it's a harmony that results from us resolving the conflict or the paradox between life and death, between holding on and letting go. Yeah, I don't know that I can say much. I avoid in any Dharma talk talking about rebirth because, like I said originally, I only want to talk about things that I know to be true for myself. And I'm not sure of these feelings that I have, but neither will I renounce those feelings, neither will I renounce those inclinations. So I remember when Bhante Tejadamo came to Adelaide years ago, only about a couple of months before I became a monk. And I mean, he struck me then as being a really kind and gentle man and that. And then someone asked him a question in question time, can you tell us, what do you think of rebirth? And he got really stroppy and he said, I'm not going to talk about that. Like that. And I was really appreciative of that because I thought, oh, good, we don't have to go around convincing people of rebirth, but we can have our own view of how things happen and just be, just look at life and wonder, how does this happen? How do I get to be here in California doing these things and coming from a working class family in Port Adelaide? I really, really became a fan of Bhante Tejadama when he said that. I thought, oh, good.
So it's still a mystery. Life is a mystery.
It is a mystery. Yeah. It is.
But somehow there is a continuity. If I may, just a dream. I was a 10-year-old boy in Hungary. And one night, I never forget the dream, I had a beautiful little red Honda motorcycle. And I had a backpack at the back and on my back too. And I was going along a river. And then Wise Man's Ferry. Now, 20 years later, I bought a small motorcycle without thinking of the dream. It was red. I had a backpack, and Prakantipalo invited me to, to build the monastery in Wise Man's Ferry. And I was riding along the river, the big river, what you cross going through Wise Man's Ferry. So I had it in my, not fate, but in my life. I had to leave my country, come to Australia, and meet the Buddha's teaching very, very quickly. It was always a mystery for me, but it was already planned out somehow. I don't know who planned it, but I had it in my heart and subconscious. When I started learning English, the first book I had was The Third Eye by Lobsang Rampa. And it took me 6 months to read it with a Hungarian dictionary. But one thing stayed with me. He was talking about the Four Noble Truths. And then when I met the sentence that life is pain, it is suffering in a way, then it clicked. And ever since then, I'm the happiest man on earth that I have met the Buddha's teaching. And I had marvelous teachers like Ayakema, Prakantipalo. And out at Wise Man's Ferry, what Buddha Dhamma. Only thing, I'm growing old and now cannot drive out to Wise Man's Ferry to the monastery. But the dream that I had as a 10-year-old already planned out, and it was the future. So when I die, or when we die, maybe there's already a plan where we end up. Of course, it's all our karma, how we behave, what we do. I know that because nothing is final. Yeah. So sorry I talk too much, but that dream taught me something. the little red Honda and the wise man's ferry.
It's
Thank
interesting,
you.
Frank. Oh, sorry.
No, you go. You go, Thay. You say what you need to say.
It's interesting, Frank, because Ayakema was my first Dharma teacher, and then I would go and stay with Prakantipalo, and I would catch the ferry across
Yes.
to Wiseman's Ferry and walk back through the forest to Wat Buddha Dhamma. Yeah. It's very interesting. But then, of course, Buddhism was very small in the 1970s and 80s. So we were all bound to meet up with the same teachers, weren't we? Yeah.
True. Yes, that's right.
Well, thank you very much, Thay, for that talk and leading that really interesting discussion. And thanks everybody for coming this evening. And a special thanks, of course, to Thay for leading us in a beautiful discussion and giving such a great, insightful talk for us. I've got plenty to contemplate.
Do you mind if I dedicate the merit?
Oh, please do.
Okay. May the wholesome energy that we have generated here tonight and at any other time in our lives be for the benefit of all living beings. May all living beings be well and happy. May all living beings be free from suffering. May all living beings know peace and joy and the causes of peace and joy. And may we all continue to walk together the Buddha's path of truth and love. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.